At this time, I call to order the Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. May we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Chester? Present. Mr. Cho? Ms. McLaughlin?
Here.
Mr. Roosh? Ms. Utman? Mr. Warmbrun?
Here.
And Mr. Welch?
Here, we have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes.
None.
None.
This time then, be approving the minutes of the January 21st, 2025 regular meeting and the minutes of the April 9th, 2025 special meeting.
Can we move to approve them both at the same time, or are these separate motions?
Can we do it separately or
I would suggest doing them separately.
separately?
Yeah, and then you can do changes to each one of them easily.
At this time, then, we'll deal with the minutes of the January 15th, 2025 regular meeting.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of the January 15, 2025 meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Those minutes are approved. This time, then, we will deal with the minutes of the April 9, 2025 special meeting.
I'll move that we approve the April 9, 2025 special meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All indicate their approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, indicate by saying nay. Those minutes are approved as well. Are any written communications?
We received one letter for tonight's case. No other communications besides that.
Or any continued public hearing?
No.
At this time, then, call for hearing case ZBA 2025C-02. Hold on. At this time, anyone who wishes to be heard tonight before the board needs to stand up. Anybody wishing to be heard? You swear or affirm the testimony you give be true and accurate to the best of your belief. Thank you. At this time, then, we will call for hearing case ZBA 2025-C-02. A request by Dave Huber on behalf of Middle Group 1003 East Washington LLC for a conditional use permit to allow multiple principal structures at 1003 East Washington Street in the R3 single and two-family residential zoning district. And we have a staff report, please.
Good evening, Zoning Board of Appeals. David Huber, on behalf of Middle Group 1003 East Washington LLC, requests a conditional use permit to build two principal structures, two single homes on the property. Section 53C of the zoning ordinance allows more than one principal structure on a lot with a conditional use permit. The proposed construction would meet all other R3 development regulations. The board may vote to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The board should either accept the specific staff findings or articulate their own specific findings based on the application's criteria. Staff recommend the ZBA approve the conditional use permit with one condition, finding that the conditional use criteria have been met. The site is approximately 6,800 square feet on the south side of East Washington Street between Wabash and South Cottage Grove Avenues in the Middle Urbana neighborhood. The property was platted in 1924. The lot originally held a two-story home that was built in 1931 and had 960 square feet of floor area. The home had been a duplex rental property from 2014 to 2018. Later, it was registered as a vacant and abandoned property and deteriorated in condition, receiving at least 2 neighbor complaints and several property maintenance violations, which took over a year to correct. The applicant purchased the property in 2024, demolished the home, and wants to build 2 detached single-dwelling homes. This is looking west down East Washington Street and looking east down East Washington Street. The dwellings would use, the construction access is using the original driveway access. The surrounding area contains predominantly single homes. There are also some duplexes and some properties with 2 homes on a single parcel and a small commercial area to the east. So all the yellow is residential, and the commercial zoning is to the east, and over here across Philo, Cottage Grove is a little bit of institutional. The zoning for the property and land to the northwest and southeast is R3, single and 2-family residential. Land to the northeast is zoned B1 and a small commercial, and land on the east side of Philo is a mix of B1, B3 general business, and IN1 light industrial / office zoning. Future land uses designated for the area are primarily residential, with some community business at Philo and Washington Avenues. If the request is granted, the applicant would build 2 two-story homes, each with 2 bedrooms, above ground floor parking and storage. Required parking would be provided by 1 space in the garage and 1 on the access drive. So on the picture in front of you, East Washington Street is to the right. That's the north. We have 2 two-story properties here running front to back with access drive here. Here are some elevations. This is looking toward the houses, looking south. So you would have the front-loading garage and a little portal door here, and a porch balcony, as it were, on the front to attempt to reduce the impact of looking at garages. They mixed some housing design on the front of the properties. The proposal complies with all other R3 development regulations, including lot area and width, floor area, open space, parking, and yard requirements. If the conditional use permit is approved, the homes would be subject to required building safety and zoning reviews. Staff found that the proposed request satisfies all 3 requirements for a conditional use permit. They are laid out there in the staff report. I'm happy to go over details of the application. The application does include statements saying that the requested conditional use would permit the development of 1 additional housing unit in the city that leverages proximity to existing pedestrian, bicycle, and public transit networks. Development on this vacant infill site takes advantage of existing infrastructure, and goes on to say that this particular type of development, 2-bedroom, single-family homes, is not economically viable to build without spreading the expense of land and site improvements across 2 houses instead of 1. Thus, granting the conditional use permit allows smaller single-family homes to be built that the market would not otherwise provide. Secondly, the proposed second dwelling would not be unreasonably detrimental to the neighborhood. The application states that the proposed use, 2 single-family dwellings, is entirely consistent with the land use pattern of the R3 single and 2-family residential district. In fact, the property directly west has 2 principal dwellings on 1 parcel. Within 1,000 feet of the property, there are other examples of 2 houses on a single lot, including 907 East Washington Street and 804 South Lynn Street. An attached duplex would be permitted on this site were it not for the lot width being 8 feet narrower than the minimum 60-foot requirement for lots platted before December 1970. The lot exceeds the area requirement for duplexes. You may remember or not a zoning text amendment that was proposed that would remove the additional lot width and area requirements for duplexes. So right now, for lots platted after a certain date, the area requirements are higher and the width requirements are higher. That was, I believe, approved by Plan Commission or recommended by approval by Plan Commission, but not by City Council. So a duplex would be allowed here by right if it was 8 feet wider. We are not looking at a duplex, though. We are looking at 2 single-family homes for this request. How does what work? Is your mic on?
Okay, so this lot is not 60 feet wide,
Correct.
and you can put two single families on it.
Yes.
But you couldn't put a duplex.
You could put 2 single families on it with a conditional use permit
Could you put a duplex on it?
if you had a lot width variance.
Oh, okay. So if it was to put a duplex, you'd have to have a lot width variance.
Right,
And here you just need a conditional use permit.
correct.
Okay.
And it might even be 860, 612. It would be a minor variance. But the intention was to want to provide single dwellings rather than double dwellings. It is complex, I will grant you that. Going on with it not being unreasonably detrimental to the neighborhood, the application goes on to state that the front-loaded garages cause the least potential disturbance to neighboring properties from noise and headlights, and eliminate the potential conflict between entering and exiting vehicles if both houses share a single drive, which they would be proposing to do. Additionally, front garages provide a noise buffer between living spaces and the very busy Washington Street. In an effort to reduce the visual prominence of the garage doors on the front elevations, a small portal is placed next to the garage to imply a front door. That's that portal door here, and a second floor balcony creates a kind of front porch. The decision to place the 2 homes side by side was motivated by a desire to not create a hierarchy between the units as in a front-back arrangement, which might have been, the first inclination with these very deep, narrow, lots. In this case, both houses would have access to the street. They'd both be equal in stature. This also means that down the road, should somebody wish to legally subdivide the property into 2 separate parcels, the homes would not have to be modified. That would require some variances, but the side-by-side arrangement would allow that as at least as an option. Finally, regarding meeting the standards of the R3 zoning district, the R3 single and 2-family residential district is intended to provide areas for low-density residential development, including single-family attached and detached dwellings and 2-family dwellings. Within a 1-block radius of the property, there are 7 duplexes and at least 3 properties with 2 detached dwellings on a single parcel. The application states the proposed use conforms to all development regulations and standards, including floor area and open space ratios, setbacks and parking minimums. The 2 structures proposed could hypothetically be linked by a 3-foot wide and 10-foot long bridge, or I like to call catwalk, on the second level and be built by right as a 4-bedroom, single-family home with 2 one-car garages. The difference between that by right scenario and the proposed project in this application is not in the building itself so much as the occupancy of the buildings. 2 2-bedroom houses as opposed to a single four-bedroom home. So I believe the applicant is trying to say a single four-bedroom home would be permitted by right, whereas two single-family dwellings requires a conditional use permit, but could perhaps not have any higher occupancy. Mr. Roosh.
So I assume that since each house is a separate unit, that would allow for the provision that only one family plus three unrelated members could live in each unit, despite the fact that it's still on one lot?
Correct. Yes, the standard zoning ordinance requirements for occupancy would apply. The Zoning Board of Appeals may impose additional conditions and requirements on the operation of the proposed use as are appropriate or necessary for the public health, safety, and welfare, and to carry out the purposes of the ordinance. Staff published a legal ad and sent letters to 61 neighboring property owners and posted a public hearing sign on the property and received one response of objection to the request. You have that in front of you. It's pretty brief and succinct. The findings, again, are summarized in the staff report. The proposed use would be conducive to the public convenience as it's easily accessible by people walking, biking, driving, or taking the bus. It's designed and proposed to be operated so that it will not be unreasonably injurious to the neighborhood as the floor plan orients the garages away from neighboring homes. And the proposed use conforms to the applicable regulations and preserves the essential character of the R3 zoning district. The ZBA has the following options in this case: to approve the conditional use along with any additional conditions and requirements as are appropriate or necessary, to approve the conditional use as submitted with no conditions, or to deny the conditional use as submitted. Based on the evidence presented, staff recommends that the ZBA approve the proposed conditional use in ZBA case 2025C02 with one condition, that construction be in general conformance with the submitted site plan. That's the end of my report. I'm very happy to answer questions, and the applicant is here to answer questions as well.
Thank you, Marcus. Any questions for staff? Go ahead.
Okay, so you do have this diagram up here right now. So there's concrete driveways that go into the garages, correct? Two of them?
Yes.
Then we have the middle strip in between. Is that concrete then also?
I believe that would be grassed.
So that really the only, when we're talking access to the garage, we're just talking this 11 foot by whatever here. And is there a door in the garage, or is that just for a cosmetic effect on the other diagram you gave us?
I would leave that for Mr. Huber to confirm that.
That one, yeah.
And I will say there was a mention in the staff report from the application, a shared drive, and I just realized that this site plan shows two separate access drives, so we would want to get that confirmed. I did check with Public Works, though, and they would accept this configuration as well, finding that the access drives are not too close to each other.
And the main entrance to the house is in the middle of this diagram?
That is how I understand it.
Okay. Thank you.
Why does it say south property line?
So this is turned 90 degrees, and so Washington Street is here. So the west is to the north and the east is to the south, or to the bottom, sorry. West is to the upper and east is to the lower. That should say north property line. You are correct. I wish you had a pointer so you could show me what you're looking at.
It's been troubling me.
No, understood.
Are there any additional questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the applicant wish to be heard?
If you can sign in and then
Just-
push the green
You have
button.
to sign in, yes.
Thanks. Thanks, Marcus, for the summary and the work to do that. I guess just to add a little bit more context, yes, I purchased the house. It had been vacant based on the documents we found of the tenant in the second floor unit who got up and left one day, probably around 2015. Originally, I bought this with the intention to keep the existing house and add an additional house in the front. It turns out that there was a reason why this house had an aborted renovation to the first floor. Probably they didn't pull permits at one point, got caught, and they stopped. But the bigger issue is that there is not a proper foundation on this house. So there's old houses, and those are great, but there's also old houses that were well below the building standards of today. So it had no anchor bolts. It was on a row of cinder blocks. It served the purpose of housing for a certain period of time, and then I imagine it went vacant and it was stalled and so on because it's very hard to invest a significant amount of money in a property that is not on a proper foundation. I should also add it's about 2 feet to the rear property line. It's completely non-conforming, that old house. The eaves of the adjoining property and this property were a foot. So the neighbor in closest proximity to that house was very happy that it was removed. PACA took nothing when it was demolished. Again, just because it's old doesn't mean it's historic. And the house was demolished in the summer of 2024, last year. I just want to emphasize the R3 zoning. It's not R1, it's not R2. It's R3. The position on Washington Street is not sort of the romanticized, quiet neighborhood street. This is a very different circumstance than the adjoining perpendicular streets. And I think, there's a lot of circumstances specific to that street and how to address that street and make it viable as a place to live, a comfortable place to live, that are different than other properties in the same neighborhood. And then, as Marcus mentioned, we're about a half block from B1 zoning. We're 1.5 from B3 zoning, and there's a little industrial on the other side of Philo and Washington. So again, this is R3 zoning, and it's also in proximity to commercial zoning. If you look at the zoning map elsewhere in our city, you'll find that commercial zoning is often accompanied by other densities of housing, not purely, single family, boom, commercial. So I'm asking for, within this R3, which permits 2 families, to sort of take advantage of that fact as well, that, there's a proximity to this other kind of zoning. So the proposed design, I guess I'll take questions after. As Marcus mentioned, I could make the same thing and add a bridge between the two, and that's acceptable. It would still meet all the requirements. I could smash them together and make it, one giant house. The issue is that to make the math work is a 4-bedroom house. It becomes a kind of rent by the room, like a lot of our student housing in this area. That's how you obtain the highest rent. That's probably 4 vehicles, 4 different people coming and going. And it's frankly just not the business of my company to cater to that kind of rental unit type. So that is my desire to, in my experience with the other properties I have, there's a demand for single-family houses or small, duplex properties that have some sort of small yard, doesn't need to be big. They have a sense of kind of autonomy, and that's a different type of housing that's provided outside of, the the apartment buildings that are built. I think Marcus covered a lot. I think what I mentioned in the application about the way the site is set, the way the planning of the site is configured, yes, it could, if some day down the road someone wanted to subdivide the lot, because there's 10 feet between the 2 buildings, that would satisfy the 5-foot side yard setback requirement, which is both a zoning consideration and a building safety consideration. Closer than 5 feet requires a different type of wall assembly for fire rating and so on. So I think that's what he was alluding to without, it could be divided without there needing to be modifications to the physical structure. That is not my intention, although I think that, that would be beneficial an option in the city to make more smaller houses for sale available that, can't otherwise be provided with, a 2-family setup. Someday perhaps the zoning will get there. Yeah, so he covered that. And then as far as, I guess some people would like to see a lot vacant. From a revenue standpoint, that's not good for the city. The estimated property tax, if this was built, would be about $12,000–$13,000 based on the, a 10-something% rate on a third of the assessed value. You're the expert in that. That's at least $6,000 to our school district. Find me a teacher who would say that we don't need another $5,000–$6,000. So, there are real impacts to having vacant properties, in addition to there being vacant properties. Sure, the taxes were paid, but for at least 8 years, no one was going to stores in our city, participating in the community and so on, in a civic sense or in a financial sense. So I am of the mind that it's good that we put housing where housing is zoned, and we bring revenue into the city. And I guess to leave you with any last thing is, yeah, there could be disagreements over style and so on, but the zoning ordinance does not mandate those kind of particularities in this particular zone. So regardless of the conditional use permit or not, it's the structure is permitted in its form. I think what we're talking about here is merely the ability to address these as 2 properties, being able to separate the utilities and so on, which makes it viable for 2 families versus, a setup in which there's single metering, it's split, and so on. So, Yeah, just to highlight that is sort of the point of the conditional use permit. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for the applicant?
The driveway situation, concrete is just both pads for the garages, and in between is grass all the way?
Yeah, and there's actually a constraining factor. The the zoning ordinance allows 2 drives on any property in the city, regardless of the zone. But there is a rule on the maximum width combined of those driveways, and I want to say it is like 40%. So the reason it is 11 feet and 11 feet is that 22, basically 52 divided by 22 is, the maximum, but that's a sufficient width for a driveway.
Then is there a door on the garage side, or is that just a cosmetic?
To the, let's say,
It would,
yeah, that's, the term portal is accurate. It's sort of an implied door, a sort of gesture to, this is where you walk through and enter, versus this sort of, maybe you're familiar with the term snout house, which is the sort of, a snout house is like the modern house in new subdivisions where the garage projects 20 feet beyond, the rest of the house, so it creates a snout. And the rest of the house in the back may be 2 floors, but the garage is a single level, so it has that snout effect. So,
David,
yeah.
could I offer maybe a clarification thing? So if you look on this drawing, so you just explained it. So this is that little portal right here. So the garage is, the enclosed space is all of the shaded area. So you would you're still outside, but you're walking through a little doorway that comes along, and then you're still outside walking down the sidewalk towards your front door. Does that make sense?
So it's a door frame without a door in it that you walk through?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh,
A portico, maybe.
right, and a portal in architectural sort of vocabulary would be, an opening in a wall that is not a doorway. So a portal, a place to pass through.
but there's no house above that.
There is. So that site plan is cut at the first level, meaning it only shows, there's
There's living space above that walkway?
correct,
Oh, okay.
correct. And,
Front view doesn't let, because the front view shows second floor all the way across.
correct.
So basically, that unshaded area over what would actually be a unvarnished rectangle is first floor cutout of what above is a regular rectangle on
Right.
the second floor. Okay.
Right,
So when you're walking through it, it is roofed and you're walking underneath enclosed second floor.
correct. And they were oriented in the direction they are to, to reduce the amount of interference with the adjoining properties that they don't, and to highlight a certain amount of forced interaction, perhaps. So, it is a shared space of some kind with privacy beyond, but there's a certain amount of that shared space.
so the second floor is not 10 feet apart they're closer than 10
No,
feet?
no. It doesn't, the overall volume of the building does not extend beyond that line there. What's challenging about the elevation is that it renders things 20 feet beyond or 15 feet beyond at the same, graphic level as something 15 feet in front of it. So no, the building is never wider than what you see on the, in the elevation.
So I go through the portal, take a few steps, turn right, and then the building is not above my head at that point?
Correct.
Okay. So we have that 10-foot, 3-inch width the entire way? Okay.
Correct.
It's like an overhang.
Well,
It's a 3.5-foot overhang.
Correct. And there's a column there, so it's essentially a mini, it's a mini porch, essentially. If there was a door right in there, then it would serve the same purpose. But the reason is to get to the heart of the house rather than, but that wouldn't cause any, the code is that there's a continuous 3-foot path to the front door. That's, I think, that's a building code for accessibility reasons.
Are there any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the audience who wish to be heard in favor of the application? In favor, please come forward.
Do I stand right here?
Well, you have to sign in first.
I'm sorry?
You have to sign in by that microphone there. Yeah. Would you like to sit down and,
No, I'm good.
all right?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Dale Huff, and I live on Wabash Street, and this is within the vicinity of where this construction is potentially going to take place. One of the things that I'm really concerned about is I know that this fella, I don't know if you're with a group or what, but it seems like they've bought up a
Sir,
number of properties.
Wait, are you in favor of this or against?
I'm right now. There are things I'm against, but then it's like I'm not.
All
Like,
Go ahead, sir.
okay. One of the things that's going on is I know that these guys. Is this is it just you, or is it a group of people, or?
Sir, you really need to address us.
Oh,
And
okay.
then he can have an opportunity to speak.
Okay, I don't know if this is a group of people or if this is just an individual, but I do know that a former property that they were working on. Okay, this is a house that they developed on Washington Street. Okay, now this is. Okay, and by the way, I'm not a public speaker or anything like that. I'm a printer. This is what I do. Okay, this is what this house looked like when they first set it up. And it was beautiful. They did a really super good job. People referred to it as the Blueberry. And it was a small house, and it fit in the neighborhood. Now, after they got done with it, And this is something I don't understand if you guys agreed to do this or what, but they put up a 2-story building in the backyard. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit this neighborhood where I live. And like I say, I've been there for 35 years. It's always been a nice residential neighborhood. And when this got built, it was, what the heck, 2 stories in the backyard. And then this is something new as well. And I don't know who approved this, but it is kind of really like an eyesore. Now, if it was a case where they had decided to do this, maybe 1 story, okay, maybe, but it just doesn't fit our neighborhood. And on that note, it seems like that something that I'm concerned about is people are looking at this neighborhood as a cash cow. And there are neighborhood or properties like this, and like the one on Washington, and one down Washington as well, where they're looking at this as a way to make money. Now, one of the things that was shown was the 2 family houses. But then at some point I heard something about rooms. I mean, is it going to turn into an apartment? I mean, is it zoned for that? Are you going to allow an apartment there? Because if they're saying, 2 houses, okay, I can deal with that. But one of the things that you're not really seeing when you see their plan is the footprint. And it looks like, yeah, you got 2 houses there. They're 2 stories tall. And that's not real apparent in this presentation. I want to see almost like a 3D rendering of what it's going to look like whenever they get done. Because it may not fit our neighborhood. I like my neighborhood the way it is. I don't want it to change. I don't want it to turn into a bunch of rental property. And that's all I can say is I'm afraid that this is going to be a situation where all of a sudden we've got apartments in my neighborhood where we didn't before. And that's about all I've got to say. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, are you in favor or against? Okay, hold on. Just hold on for a second. Is there anyone else in favor? All right. Hold on. Give the applicant a chance. Do you wish to respond now, or you want to wait till, well, I guess we're past anyone in favor, so go ahead, ma'am, and I'll give you an opportunity after. Ma'am, you can sit.
It's okay. I'm Candace Ziegler. I live at 909 East Washington Street. I'm next to the Blueberry House. You approved the second house to go up. How wonderful. It's a 2-story monstrosity. I have bought my home over 20 years ago in Urbana because I liked the area and the homes and the space we had. All of a sudden, this person has come in and is building rentals. I didn't move here to be in a rental environment. You have not taken that into consideration. Now we're going to put 2 2-story homes. Yes, the lot next to his has 2 single dwellings. 1 story. 1 story. That is the way the area has been set up. That's the way we've been living. If he needs more money, why doesn't he put a second home on 709 East Washington Street? There's plenty of room in that backyard. He can put up a monstrosity there. Why are we being singled out in our area where we've got 1 level single family homes? And yes, there are some that have 2 dwellings there. This whole area is being changed. And it seems like the board, the city, could care less about us that have been there. We're paying our taxes. Nobody's asked us, how about a change? I haven't seen anything come through. Don't you think you ought to do that first before you have somebody coming in, buying up the area for rentals? Let's just say, come to Urbana, the city of rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard? Please come forward.
On the table.
You can sit, ma'am. You don't have to stand there. You can sit if you'd like.
Just make sure the little green light's turned on the
Turn on the mic.
microphone.
Okay, it is. I moved here about 4 years ago.
Could you press that push button, please?
Press the button so the green light is green.
It is green. Oh,
And
there
then
we go.
pull the
So it's a
microphone
brighter
towards
green.
you.
Okay.
Just pull the microphone a little
challenged.
towards you.
Okay. Is that
No,
better?
pull it
Pull it
towards
closer
you.
to you.
There you go.
Okay. I should have just stood. So I moved here almost 4 years ago. I moved here because I love the area. I love that my neighborhood is cute little houses. People take care of them. We own. I came from an area where it was a lot of rentals. There was a developer that came into that area that completely destroyed it by putting up these monstrosities, and it was around the Southport area in Chicago. A lot of people left because of that. The school closed down, the library closed down, and so on. The rental situation is going to affect my resale value, the fact that it's all going to be rentals, which is wrong in my estimation. The people that are doing all of the construction and taking over all these properties around the Urbana area where I live are one group of human beings. I'm not sure if they can do that, why they're allowed to do that, why this is happening, but it's the same group. It's the same thing that's going on and on and on. I love the before and after picture because that little blue house was very much in keeping with that lovely sense of Urbana. That big purple barn in the back, there's neighbors that live around there that now can't see their neighbor in the back. Like you go in your backyard, you can't see. People that live next to that little blue house with the big purple house in back can't enjoy their house because they're smacked up against the other houses. That's not a neighborhood anymore. That's a money-making thing. If he intends to have that new two-story or 2 buildings with a catwalk and rent them out, it's money-making. It's not what I signed up for. It's not what I would like to be a part of. and it should be stopped. I don't even know why that one building was put in the backyard. I was told that I had to have a certain level of fence, a certain height of fence. And it would have been a great little picket fence. And suddenly I walk and I'm seeing this big purple thing, and that went through. And I don't know how that happens. I don't know why it's like property after property, more building, and it's the same group. It's for the same objective of making money, and it hurts me. I did not come from the Chicago area and grew up in Evanston specifically, where we kept on pushing back on different things coming through because it was destroying neighborhoods, and people paid taxes, very high taxes for living in great neighborhoods with great schools and so on, to have them turned into rentals, and then their property depreciates and so on and so forth. I just think that somebody should be paying attention. And it just seems like, oh yeah, it's going to be great. It's better than a lot. It's better than a lot. Yeah, it would be good if it was keeping with the integrity of that community, of that neighborhood, and it's not. Those pictures illustrate that perfectly. And so I guess that's all I want to say. I appreciate taking the time to come here and talk a little bit about it, and hope that somebody pays attention. You know, I pay taxes, I work hard, and I just hope that it gets better. So thank you very much.
Is there anyone else wishes to be heard? Does the applicant wish to respond?
Let me just try to look through my notes. So the blue house is my house. I live in it. It's my house. I live in that house. So it's not like that foreign of a thing to me. I live in it. It's my house. It's my home. Second thing, there was one of the respondents who said that these are going to be two-story homes. She lives in a two-story home. It's a story taller than my blue house. Just to put this out there, there are two-story homes in this neighborhood. The zoning permits up to 35 feet in this neighborhood. So 2 stories, and that's measured to the middle of the slope of the roof, not the ridge. 22, it's on a slab, so it's lower than a 2-story on a basement or crawl space. Just want to be clear that that's well below the underlying zoning there. And I think we have a human rights ordinance, we have a housing act, the language around rentals, I don't want to speak to, that's governed by a lot of law, and I encourage you to not make this decision around that issue. I can say anecdotally that I don't want to say this to seem dismissive, but I have encountered a lot of fear here around rentals and all of the social ills that come with it, despite us being a transient community inherently because of the university. And to claim that rentals are the source of everything that was described is it's misplaced anger about some other things, perhaps. Of the properties that I own, I believe there was only one of 7 that was not a rental at the time that I purchased it. So, and I lived in that house as well, and it's now a rental. There is not some mass gobbling up of owner-occupied homes and converting them to rentals. In fact, I build new houses because we need more housing, and there's a certain ethical question around buying up just old distressed homes and renovating them, and then all of a sudden charging a lot more rent. You're just reducing the supply of rentals at a lower price point. I'm building new, I'm adding to the supply in a way that does not diminish. This property with 2 houses does not diminish the number of owner-occupied houses in the city of Urbana. That's just a fact. It does nothing to diminish the number of owner-occupied houses. And yet there is also no restriction on me buying up owner-occupied houses and converting them to rentals. So that is all to say that I hope you take into consideration that these are not issues governed by the zoning ordinance of our city. There are human rights ordinances, there's a Fair Housing Act, and so on. And the concerns, I am totally all for zoning reform in our city. It's antiquated, it's not responding to how we live today. It's not responding to the concerns that other citizens have, but this is not the forum to change the zoning ordinance. And there's a plan commission where those rules can be changed, there's city council and so on. So I just want to emphasize that this being some kind of referendum on renters and height maximums and so on is it's not the place for that here, unfortunately, but I encourage our city to really go at our zoning ordinance and tackle some of these issues that seem to come up at so many of these individual hearings. Unfortunately, it feels like misplaced frustration around things that need to be addressed elsewhere. So thank you.
Hold on, sir. Huber. Question.
If I may, your description of the catwalk, that was just a hypothetical of how it could be within the letter of the law rather than the spirit of the law. There's no plans to build a catwalk between these 2 buildings, correct?
It depends on the decision of this. And that I don't mean that in a
Right,
like
but I mean, with your plan submitted.
I don't have plans submitted because I can't submit plans until this hearing is resolved. So there are drawings sort of made, but they are not submitted for construction or for a building permit pending this. And that hypothetical only came up because earlier in the year, for the sake of construction sequencing, we contemplated doing such, meaning we could pour foundations of 2 separate buildings, raise the walls, and depending on how this conditional use permit went, we would or would not put a bridge between them. which would make it a single structure and satisfy all the requirements. No, I mean, yeah, that's a hypothetical.
Right. So
You know,
if you
it
were
could
to-
be 3 stories, it could be, that would be perfectly allowed by right.
But but what you've submitted to us in this, for the conditional use permit, is a 2-story structure without a catwalk. So if we were to approve this, it would be 2-story structures without a catwalk between them.
Correct.
Okay. How many people could live in each structure legally?
So I believe 4, and I actually, I know 4, and I proposed to our planning administrator, just in a hypothetical, I said, could there be a condition that there be 2 unrelated people per unit? I would be fine with that. I think there's perhaps, I don't know if there's a legal consideration,
It would be
unenforceable.
logistically
Yeah,
impossible to regulate that.
Yeah.
So we would not support, we would not recommend that kind of condition.
So
The household occupancy requirements of the zoning ordinance would apply.
So it would remain 1 family or 4 people if 4 people wanted
Well-
to live there.
for
One-
unrelated people.
One
unrelated
family
people, right.
and no more than 3 unrelated people.
Which is the standard occupancy, okay. And do you have any plans to subdivide these units further, other than having them each be 1 unit
No.
each? Okay,
No,
just, thank you for the clarification.
yeah.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I request to make a staff clarification and respond to
Yes.
some concerns of the, the 907 East Washington, which is the house that the Blueberry was referred to, that additional dwelling was approved by conditional use permit by the Zoning Board of Appeals in 2023. It was properly noticed to all property owners within 250 feet. So they should have received letters telling them when the public hearing was and allowing time for comment at the time. I was not the case manager for that case, so I'm familiar with it, but not an expert on it. But it was a properly noticed and followed all procedures. ZBA approved it, and I was just out there last week taking pictures, and it was built according to the submitted plans. Excuse me? Okay. But it conformed with the site plan that was approved. The zoning ordinance does not regulate design. If it doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhood, that is a thing that can be debated. But sorry, I'll direct my comments to ZBA. The city does not discriminate, nor can it regulate between ownership and rentals. And we acknowledge that not everyone can afford to own their own home, which is why we have a rental process, and we have a very rigorous rental registration program. Anecdotally, it looked like when I was looking at the county information for this area, at least 30% of the properties were considered by the county as rental properties. 2-story homes are permitted. The zoning ordinance for all R1, 2, 3, 4 zoning districts allows a maximum of 35-foot height. So clearly, 2-story is permitted in the area, whether or not people choose to exercise that. If a house is built by right, the city does not say you can't build a 2-story house because there aren't other 2-story houses in the neighborhood. The zoning ordinance allows them, and we can't say, no, you can't build a 2-story house because the zoning ordinance allows 2-story houses. You can continue to not like them, but I just want you to know the difference between, yes, there is the character of the neighborhood. There are 2-story houses in this neighborhood. And finally, to address the concerns about apartments, this is R3, 1 and 2 family residential. R4 is what is required for medium-density multifamily residential. So it would require rezoning the area or any property for anything to be converted or new apartments to be built. So you can be assured that these will not be converted into apartments or that new apartments would be built. This would have to be built according to this plan, which is, I believe, two-bedroom, Mr. Huber? These are two-bedroom homes. So they won't be, they could be rentals, but it's not going to be an apartment building. Okay.
Thank you.
Catwalk with two separate families living in separate houses.
Sir, we've heard your objections, so
Doesn't make sense.
we're to call this to a conclusion. Are there any additional questions from the board to staff? Go ahead.
Your recommendation has a general condition that's in conformance with the site plan, which we just heard that there is no site plan. That's the site plan, okay.
Yes. And I will say that it's approximately in detail that was, approved for the 907 East Washington, with, all the side yards and front yards and rear yards and floor area ratio and open space ratio are all, in conformance with the R3 development regulations. If you would like additional detail, we can, address that as a condition and make sure that those are met, or if things need corrected.
All right, are there any more questions from anyone? Hearing none, are we then ready to call this case for motion? Anyone?
Give me 1 second. So I would like to recommend that I move that the zoning board approve the proposed conditional use in case ZBA 2025-C-02, finding that I agree with staff that the application meets all 3 of the requirements for a conditional use permit. And I move that we approve it with one condition, that it conform with the submitted, that construction be in general conformance with the submitted site plan.
It's been moved. Is there a second to that?
I second.
Is there any additional discussion? Having motion been moved and seconded, then we're ready for a vote.
Ms. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Roosh,
Yes.
Mr. Warmbrun,
Yes.
Mr. Welch,
Yes.
and Ms. Chester.
Yes.
That motion then is approved. Thank you to everyone. Is there any old business?
No old business, sorry.
Any new business?
No new business.
Any audience participation? Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is. So I've been promising for a while that I would report back to you on the outcomes of all the hard work of the ZBA in reviewing and hopefully granting conditional use permits and minor variances and things like that, and put together a little printout from our case database. I figured I would start from the most recent things and just go through our building permit software to see what's happened for different things. So, starting off on the page where it's Mr. Huber's case with a blank at the top, we built for the garage apartment that you heard on West High Street. A building permit's been issued in May for the Laris front yard reduction, where they're going to take the open porch and remove it and build a new porch that's enclosed. They applied for a building permit in April. The minor variance for the garage on West Michigan Avenue that was granted. Just here, picture's not showing up very well, but you can see the garage in the back has been constructed. It passed its final inspection. I think it looks pretty good. And it is in line with, the house, just as they proposed it would be. The Bowie porch steps front yard encroachment that was denied, I think, by the ZBA. No, actually, it was recommended for approval. It was denied by City Council because they felt that there wasn't a special condition, a special circumstance there. Staff had recommended not to approve it because we didn't feel there was a special condition, but we recommended to them that if they felt like it made sense for people to be able to build their stairs out as far as they could build their porch, then we could change the zoning ordinance. So staff prepared an amendment to the zoning ordinance. It was recommended for approval by Plan Commission and was approved by City Council in probably the fastest turnaround of a text amendment I've seen. So now you will have fewer variance cases to hear because we've right-sized our zoning ordinance. So good on you for that. Don't be afraid to turn things down if you don't think they meet that threshold. But if you think that we ought to change the zoning ordinance because something doesn't make sense the way we're doing it, if you find yourself granting the same variance over and over again, maybe we should consider updating the zoning ordinance. So good on you for that. The farmhouse fraternity, encroachment into increase in the required floor area ratio to allow for an enclosed stairwell to be built, replacing an old exterior emergency stair. A building permit was issued in February, and the footing and slabs passed inspection on March 20th. If you drive down Lincoln, you can see that they are building that enclosure. You can, keep an eye on its progress. For the proposed drive-through coffee shop at 809 West Green Street, you all issued the conditional use permit. I think for the drive-through, and there was a special use permit issued for that as well. They just applied for their building permit 2 weeks ago, so that's going to be moving on. You may remember a accessory structure lean-to that was built at 805 East Perkins Road retroactively. They did apply for their building permit, but it looks like it got stopped because they needed to get the variance, and after we issued the variance, that process never got finished up, so we need to close out that building permit, but it was already built. The Chen Tan duplex on 312 West Illinois Street, which was a conditional use permit to allow a duplex in the R3 zoning district, but also it needed, I think, 4 variances to rebuild it in the same place because it had been legally non-conforming. This would allow it to be built with the same yards. They have demolished the old duplex, and they issued the building permit on November 27th. The foundation passed inspection on March 18th, and you can see it's being built. And it meets those yard requirements. Again, it's not going to be fancy, but it's going to be, housing for 2 families. And it's going to be rental because duplexes are rentals. You don't own a duplex. You don't own a unit in a duplex without converting it to a condo or something. So when you see a duplex, it's by definition rental housing. Sorry, I'll get off my stump. And then on the back page, we issued a minor variance and another variance for 410 West Illinois Street. The other variance was for a access drive width allowance increase. So the demo permit was issued and the house was demolished, but nothing's been built there yet. Probably the one no action so far. We worked on a minor variance at 606 West Washington Street to allow expansion of an existing house into the front yard to allow for a bathroom and a foyer. No action was taken and the house was sold, so probably that project isn't ever going to happen, but the variance runs with the property, so if somebody does want to, take advantage of that allowance, they can do that. And it's a recorded document, so, it is public knowledge. Another big project on 408 West Main Street. I don't think I have any pictures this month, but they built the duplex with the reduced front yards, and the certificate of occupancy was issued last July, so it's being lived in right now. And there are the extra variances for the 312 West Illinois Street duplex. The Bake Lab pergola, those pergolas were already built. This was basically kind of a retroactive variance to allow those to continue being there. The next major variance is the other one for 410 West California. Then you see the conditional use permit for the self-storage facility on East Colorado. Those have been built. I'm not sure if a certificate of occupancy has been issued yet, but when I did the inspection, it conforms to the approved site plan. So they built it the way they need to. They still have to install the landscaping, i.e. the fence and the landscape buffer to the east next to the assisted living facility there. And that's really all I've got to report. But, I think with the exceptions of those 2 cases, the one with the variance where the people sold the house and the other one where they demolished the house but haven't built the new one yet, it has been time well spent. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there a study session?
No study session.
Then, yes.
I feel obligated to ask you once again about bylaws and whether the lawyer hasn't been available yet to start working on them.
I believe the answer is still no, and your question will be duly noted. We are still working towards having a permanent Community Development Services Director in the near future. And so things may change that will allow for more staff time and more interaction with the legal division to have those bylaws be reviewed for the ZBA and all of the other boards and commissions.
Yes.
What's the current number that we have active on the ZBA? What's our capacity, and are there any plans to fill any empty seats?
Terry, do we have vacancies on ZBA?
When is the next cycle of seats up? I'm just curious.
See,
So
Harvey's is up.
everybody's term.
Harvey's not up.
Yeah.
Okay, so terms end is it June 30th? June 30th.
I think at the end of the
It's a
fiscal year.
thing, so July 1st to June 30th of the following year. And each member's terms is staggered, so not all of the board or commission ends at the same time. So, like, just an example, I don't know off the top of my head, yours may end 2023, Ashley's may end 2024. I mean, I know I'm going back in time, but
So Harvey's up on June 30th this year.
I think there's 2 on zoning board.
I'm up next year on June 30th for sure. And Nancy is, I'm not sure if Nancy's with me. It's on the website.
Yeah, I can go look. I guess that's what I needed, was where to look. The website makes sense. I should go look at that.
And I've looked at the,
So Matt Cho and Nancy Utman is up this year, and Harvey. So we have 3 up this year.
3 of them
for
are up?
So
Reappointment.
Matt, Nancy, and Harvey. Okay, cool. Just curious.
I thought Matt already got reappointed. But
And hearing nothing else, we're adjourned.
Adjourned at 8:22. Thank you very much.